They went on night patrol together and came back wearing only underwear and boots, claiming they got robbed. Then I pulled out the camera and played the spicy footage. What they did under the moonlight shocked everyone. There were 6 of us heading into the woods that Friday afternoon. Me, my girlfriend Lena, and our longtime friends. We'd been planning the trip for a few weeks. Nothing over the top. Just a simple, camp out deep enough in the forest. It was supposed to be for rest. Sleeping under the trees, beer by the fire, and pretending for a while that none of us had bills or jobs. We met at the trailhead around 2:30 in the afternoon. They looked excited, so did I. Then something shifted when I caught the way Lena hugged him. Not too long, just a little tighter than with the others. And when she pulled back, she looked him in the eyes. Didn't mean anything, but I noticed. We started walking around 3 o'clock. The trail was flat at first, then gradually sloped up into shaded forest. Everyone was in good spirits. Tyler kept cracking dumb jokes. Max led the way, acting like he'd memorized the trail when we all knew he was just good at pretending. Cindy talked nonstop, flipping between stories about work and complaints about how her boots were already rubbing. Eugene mostly stayed quiet, nodding when spoken to, the way he always did. Lena was walking near the front at first, but after 20 minutes or so, she drifted back, right next to Alex. Again, could be nothing. Could just be the way they fell into step. But she laughed a little too loud at something he said. And when he handed her his water bottle to take a sip, she didn't hesitate. I didn't say anything, just watched. We reached the clearing a little after 4. It was a wide, flat patch of earth surrounded by tall trees and backed by a ridge that sloped down toward a shallow stream. Someone had been here before us. The remnants of a fire pit were still in the middle, old stones laid out in a loose ring. We dropped our gear and started setting up. Tents first, I set mine a little ways off because I liked space. We got everything up in about 40 minutes. By then, the light was starting to shift. The forest changed around sunset. Sounds got louder, shadows longer. Someone cracked open the first beer, probably Tyler, and we all slowly circled up near the fire pit. There was no distractions, just wood, flame, smoke, and the familiar hum of people you've known for too long to be polite around anymore. Max told the first story, something dumb about a fight he almost got into at a music festival. Cindy followed with a story about some girl at her work who got caught cheating on her fiancé with the CEO. Everyone laughed, drinks passed around. One story turned into another, then the joke started. And somewhere in the middle of all that, Max turned toward Lena and said it. "Hey, remember back in high school how Lena used to cling to Alex?" The others reacted instantly. "Oh, totally," Cindy added, grinning. "You were so into him, it was embarrassing." "I was not," Lena laughed, covering her face. "You were practically glued to his arm," Max said. "I was 15, she shot back. "Give me a break." Alex smirked, but didn't say anything. I laughed too, because everyone did. Because that's what you do in moments like that. No one wants to be the guy who can't take a joke. After a while, the fire burned lower. The group thinned out, one by one. They peeled off toward their tents. Tyler went first, Cindy followed him. Alex stretched and wandered off to piss in the trees. I stayed near the fire a little longer, watching the last of the embers flicker out. Lena sat next to me. "That was fun," she said. "Yeah," I replied. "Felt like old times." She nudged me with her knee. "You okay?" "Why wouldn't I be?" She shrugged. "You were kind of quiet during that thing about me and Alex." "It was just a joke," I said. She nodded, looked at the fire, and then back at me. "Yeah, just a joke." She leaned over, kissed me once, light, then stood up and headed to her tent. I watched her go. When she zipped it closed behind her, I sat there another 10 minutes, listening to the wind. Then I went to bed that I didn't fall asleep for a long time. And as I stared at the dark curve of my tent roof, I couldn't stop replaying that moment around the fire. The way she laughed, the way she looked at him, and the way he never said a word. The first full day started early. Max was already up when I unzipped my tent. He was boiling water over the fire pit, focused like he was performing surgery. Eugene sat nearby, hunched over a metal mug, steam rising as he stirred instant coffee. I gave them both a nod and walked past toward the gear pile to grab my hoodie. Mornings out here were cold, and I hadn't slept much. The others woke slowly, one by one. Tyler staggered out of his tent like he'd been hit by a truck. Cindy appeared wrapped in a sleeping bag, claiming she couldn't feel her fingers. Alex emerged next, stretching with dramatic groans, followed closely by Lena. She was smiling and looked well-rested. "Did you sleep well?" she asked. I nodded. "Yeah, and you?" She shrugged. "Cindy talks in her sleep." Kept calling her boss a rat. That earned a small laugh from the group. The morning warmed up slowly, and we started making plans for the day. The idea was to hike out to a small cliff about 2 miles east of camp, eat lunch there, and loop back around before dark. I volunteered to carry the med kit and water filter. We broke into loose pairs as we walked. Max and Eugene up front again, Cindy hovering between them, Tyler in the back by himself with earbuds in. That left me, Lena, and Alex all in the middle. Lena walked next to me for the first stretch. We talked about some dumb movie we'd watched the week before, then walking next to Alex. They talked low, mostly just quiet conversations I couldn't hear. I watched the way she laughed. Not forced, not overly excited, just relaxed. At one point, we reached a narrow part of the trail that curved sharply upward, and there were rocks to climb over. Everyone went one at a time. When it was Lena's turn, Alex reached down and offered his hand. She took it, no hesitation. He pulled her up smoothly. They kept walking together. I came up behind them a few seconds later, slower than usual. We stopped at the cliff around noon. It was beautiful, wide open view, trees rolling like waves in every direction, and enough breeze to cool off without freezing. Cindy unpacked sandwiches. Max passed out drinks. Tyler complained that we brought no chips, and Eugene gave him half a protein bar just to shut him up. We sat in a wide circle, legs hanging over the edge, sun hitting our backs. Lena sat between Cindy and Alex. She didn't come sit by me. I didn't say anything. The others were too distracted to notice, but I did. On the way back, I stayed in the back on purpose. I let the distance grow between us. Listened to the sounds of their laughter, their footsteps ahead of me. Every now and then I caught Lena turning around to check on me. I just nodded like I was fine. Back at camp, we crashed for a while. A few dozed in their tents, some just laid out on their sleeping pads under the shade. I walked off a bit, behind the ridge, just to think. Something was happening between them. When I got back, someone had already started prepping dinner. Instant noodles, jerky, whatever was. There were drinks again, though fewer than the first night. Everyone was a little more worn down now. Max set up the campfire again. Cindy and Eugene gathered wood. The mood was light. Then we ate, drank, and laughed. Everyone found their spots. It was around 9 p.m. when the topic of night patrol came back up. It was tradition. 1 or 2 people stay up each night, rotate through short shifts, keep an eye on the fire, listen for animals, make sure nothing goes wrong. "I'll take first shift," Max offered. "Eugene, you in?" "Sure," Eugene said. "Wake us up when it's over." Someone asked about the second shift. "I'll go," Lena said, lifting her hand with Alex. She didn't even look at me when she said it. "Figured we haven't talked LOT up in forever," she added casually, glancing at Cindy. "Might as well talk while we're stuck watching trees." Max nodded cool. Everyone moved on. No one saw the way my jaw tightened or the way Alex glanced toward me, then away. I lay in my tent after the fire died down, still fully dressed. I kept my boots on, pulled my sleeping bag up, but didn't zip it. Around 1:10 a.m., I heard them leave. Soft footsteps, zipper noises, whispered voices. They didn't take flashlights, just a phone on low light, probably. I listened until the sound disappeared completely. 15 minutes passed, then 20, and then the sounds returned. But not from the trail, rustling from the trees behind the ridge. I sat up, reached for my flashlight, and slid out of the tent. This time, I walked slower, followed the trail I knew too well. I climbed the ridge, ducked past the same dead log, stepped between 2 wide trees, and stopped. The moon was out, enough to see. The bushes were moving. I stood still, far enough back not to be seen. And then I saw them. The light hit just right, enough to reveal Lena on her back, Alex over her, her arms wrapped around his neck, their bodies pressed. Just them, exactly how I feared I'd find them. I watched for a moment, then turned and walked away, back to camp. No one saw me return, no one heard me lie down, and as I stared at the ceiling of the tent, I started to cry. I knew exactly what I'd seen, and now, I needed to decide what to do with it. Sleep came in short waves, broken by the occasional wind through the trees and the rustling of someone turning over in their tent. But it didn't matter. I wasn't tired. I was thinking about how to make sure no one ever forgot what they did out here. By sunrise, I was already out of the tent. Max was boiling water again, Eugene still buried in his sleeping bag. Cindy emerged next, stretching and yawning, while Tyler complained about his back like he'd slept on a pile of bricks. Lena and Alex returned about 20 minutes later, fully dressed this time. She smiled at me like it was just another day. He nodded like nothing happened. I nodded back, didn't say a word. She walked over, kissed me on the cheek, and asked if I slept okay. Yeah, I said. Just a little stiff. You look tired, she added. Didn't sleep great, I replied, keeping my voice flat. Forgot to take something for my allergies. She didn't ask anything else. After breakfast, most of the group decided to go down toward the stream to wash up and refill the bottles. I volunteered to stay behind, told them I needed to dry out my gear and reorganize some things in my pack. That gave me a full hour alone at camp, more than enough. I went to my bag and pulled out what I always packed, but never thought I'd need for anything serious. 2 compact action cameras. One of them had a wide lens, good for fixed positioning. The other had a slightly better mic. I had brought them in case we caught something interesting for fun, maybe film a time-lapse of the fire or set one up for a group shot. But now they had a different purpose. I walked back toward the ridge, same trail, same turns, careful not to leave footprints that stood out. The area around their little spot was familiar now. Disturbed soil, snapped twigs, leaves flattened by elbows and knees. I studied it slowly, mapped where they moved, where they laid their clothes, where the best angle would be to see everything clearly. I set the first camera low to the ground, hidden under a mossy root just off the left side of the clearing. It pointed straight toward the log where they'd been. The second camera I placed slightly higher, in a hollow between 2 branches, just above the slope where they usually dropped their clothes. I tested both, checked battery and hit record, covered them lightly with leaves to break any reflection. When I finished, I stood there for a second, hands in my pockets. They thought they were smart. Safe under moonlight, a few hundred feet from camp. I walked back to camp, still alone. The others returned not long after, voices louder again, joking about how cold the stream was, how someone slipped on wet rocks. Lena was among them, laughing like everything was fine. She passed me a towel, asked if I needed to rinse off. I shook my head. Not in the mood, I said. Alex didn't look at me. He kept close to Max and Tyler, talking about making a firewood run later. Cindy stayed near the tents, brushing her hair, headphones in. The rest of the day passed without anything unusual. We hiked a short trail around the ridge just for the sake of moving. Everyone brought snacks and joked the whole way. Cindy took photos. Tyler nearly walked off a ledge chasing what he claimed was a hawk. I smiled when I needed to and played along, but my mind was already several hours ahead. By dinner, the tension in me had turned into control. I wasn't unsure anymore. I had a plan, and tonight was the night I'd let them walk straight into it. After we ate, we went through the same evening routine, cleaning up, getting the fire going, pulling out the last of the drinks. The air was colder now. Everyone was in jackets or hoodies, sitting closer to the fire. The mood was good, and just like before, patrol shifts came up. I'll do second shift again, Lena offered, looking across the circle with Alex if he's good. He nodded like it was just another offer, casual, normal. Everyone else agreed. I said nothing. And just like that, it was set. They thought they were getting away with it again. The fire burned lower that night. A kind of calm had settled in after 2 full days out here. People were tired, a little dirty, looking forward to their own showers and real beds tomorrow night. But I wasn't tired. I'd been waiting for this one moment since last night. They got up at 1 a.m. sharp. Lena unzipped her tent. Alex met her near the fire ring with a flashlight already on, dimmed low. They spoke in hushed voices. I heard them through the nylon of my tent. Then they were gone down the trail, same as before. I sat up, zipped my jacket, and waited. I stepped out of my tent and glanced around. Everyone else was still asleep. I walked carefully, avoiding sticks. I didn't get close, but could hear it. First rustling, then broken whispers. Then the same rhythm, the same breath patterns I remembered too well. I knew the cameras were recording audio, video, everything. This time, I wouldn't just know. I'd have proof. I circled wide around the ridge, approaching from the side where the trees opened up and their gear lay at the base of a stump, clothes folded sloppily, shoes tossed in a heap. They were too distracted to notice anything. Without making a sound, I bent down, picked up her hoodie, his jeans, her boots, both of their shirts, everything except their underwear and socks. I stuffed it all into my bag and quietly stepped back into the woods. By the time I made it back to camp, the fire was almost out and nothing had changed. I stowed the bag at the bottom of my tent, climbed in, and laid back down. They didn't return until close to dawn. I heard them coming, stumbling, and whispering. Then the footsteps picked up again, quicker, more panicked. They circled around the fire pit, looking. I heard Lena's voice, shaky and forced. "Where the hell's my jacket?" Alex hissed something back. I couldn't catch the words. They waited a few more minutes, probably deciding whether to wake anyone, whether to lie, whether to run back into the woods and pretend nothing happened. But eventually, they gave up. They walked back into camp, half-dressed, dirty, cold, trying to look casual in nothing but underwear and boots. Cindy was the first to see them. She blinked, looked them up and down, then let out a dry laugh. "What happened to you?" Lena forced a weak smile. "It's not what it looks like." Max sat up from his tent. Tyler pulled back his zipper and peeked out, groggy, confused. "We got jumped," Alex said quickly. "Locals or something. They were drunk, took our stuff, scared us off." Then Eugene muttered, "You're serious?" Lena nodded, arms crossed over her chest. "We were just doing rounds. They came out of nowhere." Max raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. Cindy just stared at her. I stood up slowly. "Give me 10 minutes, I said calmly. "Don't go anywhere." I walked to the ridge without looking back, following the trail one last time. I pulled both cameras, powered them down, and tucked them back into my jacket. Then I returned to camp. Everyone was waiting by the fire pit. Lena was sitting on a rock, arms around her knees. Alex was pacing. The others looked unsure, caught between suspicion and disbelief. I unzipped my bag, pulled out the camera, and without saying anything, plugged it into the power bank and opened the file. The video played on a small screen. No commentary, no build-up, just them, kissing, laughing, clothes off. No one said a word. Max exhaled slowly and shook his head. Eugene sat down like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. Cindy stepped back, hand to her mouth, stunned. Lena stood up fast. "Wait, I was drunk. We were drinking," Alex interrupted. "You filmed us? Are you sick in the head?" "You lied," I said simply, "both of you, in front of everyone." Alex looked around, realized no one was stepping in, then charged me like a switch had flipped. I expected it. He was fast but wild. I stepped to the side, let him swing, caught his wrist, and drove my shoulder into his chest. He hit the ground hard, face twisted with rage. "Stop," Lena yelled, but no one moved. Cindy walked right up to her, looked her in the face, then slapped her. A sharp, loud crack. "You're disgusting," she said. "You could have just broken up with him." No one argued. I looked at Max. "Get your stuff." He nodded. Everyone packed in silence. It didn't take long to pack up. There was no discussion, no debate about what to do next. People just moved, folding tents, stuffing sleeping bags into sacks, rolling mats, checking gear twice like it helped them not think about what had just happened. Max was the fastest. He kept his eyes low, didn't speak. Cindy moved quietly too, throwing things into her backpack like she couldn't stand touching anything that had been near Lena. Eugene checked on the stove and fuel last, made sure nothing was left behind. Tyler didn't say a single word. He just stared at the ground and worked. Lena sat off to the side now, wrapped in one of the blankets from the gear pile. Alex was beside her, crouched down, still catching his breath from earlier. He had mud on his arm, his face red, but he wasn't trying to fight anymore. Nobody offered them help. Nobody gave them a second look unless it was filled with disgust. They were just there, watching the people they called friends get ready to leave them behind. I checked the last bag, zipped it shut, and hoisted it over my shoulder. Everyone else was almost done. Max tossed a roll of duct tape to Eugene without a word. Cindy grabbed the trail map from the log near the fire ring. Alex stood up slowly. "That's it?" he asked. "You're just gonna leave us?" Lena looked at me. "You said nothing last night," she said. "You just let it happen." "No," I replied. "You let it happen twice." "Seriously," Alex snapped, now addressing the group. "You're all fine with this? He filmed us like a psycho, and you're just cool with that." Cindy walked up, dropped their lighter and a box of matches near the edge of their sleeping bag. "There," she said, "make your own fire tonight." Then she looked at Lena. "I used to feel sorry for you. Now I don't feel anything." We didn't hike out in a straight line. The group was scattered, spaced out in pairs, in silence. The only sounds were branches snapping underfoot, the occasional bird call, and his zippers being tugged or buckles tightened. I stayed near the front with Eugene. He didn't ask questions, just walked. About 20 minutes in, Cindy caught up beside me. "You okay?" she asked. Eventually. Behind us, Alex shouted one last thing, something about how we were all sheep, that I'd manipulated everyone, that the real crazy one wasn't them. No one answered. Tyler looked back once, then kept walking. An hour later, we reached the lot. Everyone looked exhausted, not from the trail, but from what we'd carried with us the last day and a half. No one rushed to their car. No one hugged goodbye. They just got in and started engines. Before Max left, he looked at me through his window. "You handled it not the way I would have. But you handled it." I nodded. "Yeah." He drove off. One by one, they followed. Cindy was last. She rolled down her window before pulling out. "Good luck with everything after this." "Same to you." And then she was gone. The lot was empty. The air smelled like dirt, dust, and old pine. My car was still there. I loaded my bag in the trunk and got in, but didn't start the engine right away. I just sat there for a moment, looking at the trailhead, thinking about how different this place had felt only 2 days ago. Back then, it was just a camping trip. Now, it was the place where everything cracked open, not with yelling, not with crying, but with proof. Unshakable. Unforgivable. I didn't know what Lena and Alex would do next. Whether they'd make it back today or tomorrow. Whether they'd stay together or fall apart once it all sank in. That wasn't my concern anymore. I had what I needed, and they had what they deserved. The drive back was quiet. Just the road and the occasional dull rattle from the gear in my trunk. I didn't rush. There wasn't a reason to anymore. Everything I needed to say had already been said, and the rest I'd made sure they saw for themselves. When I pulled into my apartment lot, it was still early. The sun had barely started to drop, leaving the sky pale and flat. I carried my bag inside without stopping to check the mailbox or say hi to the neighbor's kid riding circles on his scooter. Inside, everything looked exactly how I'd left it. A jacket over the back of the chair, dishes in the rack, an unopened package on the kitchen counter. I dropped the bag near the door, peeled off my boots, and went straight to the shower. I stood under the hot water for longer than I needed. Afterward, I made a sandwich from whatever was still in the fridge and ate it standing up. There were 2 unread messages on my phone, both from random group chats that had nothing to do with what just happened. I didn't answer them. Later that night, I pulled the footage from the cameras and saved it in 2 separate folders, one backed up to a drive, the other stored offline just to have, in case either of them ever tried to twist the story later. In case someone, someday, asked what really happened. The next morning, I did everything normally: coffee, laundry, took the trash out. But there was one thing I did before heading out to get groceries. I opened my messages, scrolled to Lena's name, and deleted the entire thread. Then I deleted the photos, the saved videos, everything with her name on it. I didn't block her. That would have given her too much credit. She could reach out if she wanted. But if she did, she'd be talking to someone who didn't owe her anything anymore, and that was enough. A few days passed. Cindy messaged once, just a short, "You good?" with no emojis. I answered with a simple, "Yeah." She didn't follow up. Max liked one of my old Instagram posts and left it at that. Eugene didn't say anything, but I knew he'd seen the video again. He was the kind of guy who stored that kind of truth in the back of his mind and carried it quietly. I didn't hear a single thing from Lena. Not a message, not a call. She knew what she'd done, and she knew there was no coming back from it. It was a week before I heard her name again. I was at the grocery store when Cindy called. I almost didn't pick up. Hadn't really spoken to anyone from the trip since that single check-in message. But I answered, and for a few seconds, neither of us said anything. Then she asked if I'd heard what happened. Lena had tried to explain it to her parents. Apparently, they found out something, maybe from her, maybe from someone else in the group, and she tried to downplay it. Told them it was a misunderstanding, a mistake that didn't mean anything. She left out the video, obviously. But someone must have told them it existed, because her father asked for details. She didn't have any. They didn't take it well. Cindy said they kicked her out of the house. "You can't stay here after this." Her parents were old-fashioned. She knew that still thought she could spin it. As for Alex, he apparently showed up to a mutual friend's birthday party a few days later like nothing happened. Max was there, so was Tyler. Word got around before Alex arrived, and by the time he walked in, everyone already knew. They just ignored him. He stood in the middle of the room for about 15 minutes before he left without saying a word. Cindy told me she blocked both of them the same day we left camp. I told her I hadn't heard from either of them. Not a message, not a call, not even a reaction on some old photo. She paused for a second, then said, "Good." That was the end of the call. The rest of the group kept some distance. Max liked a few more posts. Eugene sent a thumbs-up reaction to something I shared about work. Tyler unfollowed both Lena and Alex. Small things, but they said enough. Nobody wanted to pretend things were the same anymore. And honestly, I didn't either. A month passed. Lena didn't try to fix anything. Alex didn't offer an excuse, and I didn't chase either of them. The whole thing was finished, and everyone who needed to see the truth had already seen it. I cleared out the last of her things from the apartment. Just a few clothes in a drawer, a mug she left behind, an old charger. I threw it all in a bag and left it at the front desk of her building. I didn't leave a note, didn't tell her. If she wanted it, she'd know where it came from. If not, it didn't matter. Cindy and I spoke a few more times, mostly in passing short updates, nothing deep. Max sent a few dry jokes over text like he was trying to test if I still had a sense of humor. Eugene stayed quiet, but when we bumped into each other one day near the park, he nodded once and said, "Good call, man." That was enough. I didn't talk about it again, not with anyone. Not with new people I met. Not with old friends who had only heard parts of the story. When someone asked how the trip went, I said, it was a learning experience, and left it at that. The kind of phrase that ends a conversation before it starts. I started going on hikes again. Same boots, same gear, but different company. I like the silence now. She was gone. The damage was done. The rest, not my problem anymore. The truth didn't make things better. It just made them clear, and that was enough. Thanks to everyone who stayed with me through it.